It's a shocking admission from President Biden's Border Patrol chief, admitting to members of Congress that the situation at our southern border is out of control, if you didn't already know that. He contradicted previous testimony from DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. This is what the secretary said back in April.
Will you testify under oath right now? Do we have operational control, yes or no?
Yes, we do. And
we have operational control of the borders.
Yes, we do.
But at the House border hearing yesterday in Texas, which the Democrats boycotted, Border Patrol Chief Raul Ortiz offered a very different view about operational control.
Sir, when you talk about operational control, about 10 years ago, we used operational control as a measuring stick of our effectiveness along the southwest border.
I'm asking a very specific question,
yes,
and you're kind of describing how the goalpost has been moved because of the mass waves of people that are coming. My question, you heard the secretary, he said we have operational control. That's the definition of operational control.
Based upon the definition you have, sir, up there, no.
We don't have operational control.
No, sir.
So operational control, federal statute, defines as the prevention of all unlawful entries into the United States, including entries by terrorists, other unlawful aliens, instruments of terrorism, narcotics, and other contraband, right, Kennedy? Well, we have new CBP numbers, so all unlawful entries, 0 is operational control. Well, we've had 900,000 migrants from 147 countries just in the fiscal year 23, several of which 16 in just 1 month on the terror watch list. Operational control?
No, I mean, by any definition, you can broaden the definition, you can soften it, whatever the metric is. This is a failure. So I look at this administration, and, you know, obviously I may have a different view of immigration than some people who talk about this here, but I'm wondering from the administration, how bad are you going to let it get? At what point will you say it's a failure? It's not working. This is wrong. It's dangerous for people who live here. It's dangerous for people who are coming here. It is immoral for kids who are being trafficked from those 147 different countries whose parents are desperate to borrow money, to give them to cartels, to give them to coyotes, to get them here as a distraction to funnel drugs into this country. It is a broken system. They are unserious people. The Democrats didn't even attend the hearing. It's like, fine, hold the hearing in Washington with the same people and show up, do your work, and keep things safe, because that is one of your basic jobs.
Right. If you saw the empty seats, that's where the Democrats were supposed to sit. Mark Green had some comments on Democrats being AWOL.
In the Army, when someone didn't show up, we called them AWOL, or absent without leave. Their place of duty is at this hearing because it's a full hearing, and they're not here. They're AWOL.
Emily, I don't understand. Okay, so they didn't show up, but why not counter-program the Republicans and go show up at migrant facilities and act like you care about the kids who have been trafficked across the border? Why not do that?
Because they don't care. I loved what he said. Their place of duty is at the hearing, right? And this is the chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee. I felt that was really powerful. And what struck me about their absence is, what message does it send? What message does it send to all of us Americans, to all of their constituents? You know, they replied and said, well, the reason that we're not going is because it's been politicized by the Republicans, and therefore it's disrupted our proud history of bipartisan work. But all we see are empty seats. And I note that the 2 states with the highest drug overdose, the highest poisonings occurring, are Maryland and California. Maryland with the greatest overdose death rate among all deaths, and California with the highest number in general. And those are staunchly blue. How do those combined populations of 46 million Americans feel about their elected representatives not caring to show up? Because whatever sort of talking point defense they gave, it doesn't sit well with those grieving family, with those torn apart communities. So to your point, even if they held it in Washington, I doubt they would show up then, because they do not care, because actions are what matter.
Harris, we also heard Ortiz stand up for the agents accused of whipping migrants. We know there was a 511-page report that came out, and the conclusion was there was no evidence that Border Patrol agents involved in the incident struck migrants. But what I'm curious to find out, there was an email from 12:05 p.m. when this was going viral in Mayorkas's inbox, and that email had words from the photographer saying it never happened, but yet Mayorkas doubled down on demonizing them. So too did the president. I want to know, did Mayorkas see the email, and did he share that with the president before they demonized Border Patrol?
Well, and who's making the decisions about what the narrative is going to be?
Is that the White House? I think we know that. I think we also know that in this instance, that the White House called this hearing a stunt. And even though Democrats had used our money to buy all of their travel and had lined up at least one witness, they flipped the switch politically and canceled on all of this. Same thing with the whipping. The White House was still trotting this out long after that email had landed in the box of Mayorkas. And we also know that there was a narrative about the thousands of Haitians under the bridge in Eagle Pass and all of that. I mean, that was a really nasty scene, and it looked terrible for the White House. Mayorkas calls the Border Patrol. I got that on the record. He wanted to know, is this real? Did the news media make up this picture? I mean, I guess that's what they were going to try to float. And the Border Patrol said, no, we're going down to deal with it right now. Like we have like everybody dealing with it right now. It's very, very real. So the White House wants America to believe something different. But I would ask those Democrats, along the lines of what Emily was saying, who do they represent? Not everybody voted for them, but they are responsible to every constituent in their district, respectively.
Yeah.
They are. They serve the people, not just the people they like.
Right?
And they make
such a
laws.
David, you know, one thing that I'm curious where you stand. I've heard two arguments made. One from Republicans saying we don't want to impeach Mayorkas because we don't want to look like we're politicizing impeachment. Right. Then I've heard another argument. He's deserving of impeachment. And then I see this op-ed from Mark Morgan and Tom Homan. I mean, two guys who have been there, done the job. You know, they said impeachment was not designed to settle political scores or policy differences. It's reserved for holding public officials accountable when they violate the law, abuse the power of their office, or are dishonest with the American people. Sadly, the actions of Mayorkas demand Congress take this rare step. That's pretty bold.
It's pretty bold, and for Kevin McCarthy to say that he's going to, quote, respect the process and not go forward when there are already two filed articles of impeachment ready to go into committee and out of committee. By the way, Mark and Tom are absolutely right. I have them on my show often. We talk about this. The use of impeachment against Mayorkas matters here. By the way, and it ties to what you were talking about with that memo that went to him, the email. His responsibility before going to the president, and he was there during Trump, so he saw what happened when real border security was in place, and he's seen the failure. His responsibility is to find the facts and go to the president. Mayorkas is a deliberate failure. It's a deliberate policy. And to the point of who the Democrats are speaking to, they're speaking to their open borders constituents. They don't care about reasonable Americans, doesn't matter what side of the aisle they're on, that believe in community safety, that want Americans to have the secure border, that want us to be protected. They do not care. They're simply speaking to their constituents, not to the rest of America.
Yeah, but if Mayorkas had a podium to stand at, those agents who he demonized did not.
Well,
they could not speak for themselves. And if he knowingly knew that they did nothing and stood at that podium and demonized them, I mean, impeachment's the only answer.
He's actually lied in Congress to Congress under oath.
Well, that's what we found out from Raul Ortiz's testimony. That they're not just conflicting. One side was lying. And as I said last hour, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Huge problem.
Hey, everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.